Tomorrow, we're going to be starting session 7, and this is healthy communication and conversation starters. And so we're just going to be giving you some more tools of how to dive into your mentoring relationship. Some of the things we're going to be talking about are not things that you have to do or that we are expecting you, hey, this is formulaic. You need to get your book out and you're going to go X, Y, Z and follow all these things. But these are more just ideas of ways you can start some conversations or ways you can ask some questions. So let's go ahead and get started with what's it going to look like when you do a first time get together. And so it does not have to be, this has to be what you do every single time, but we want to say when you get together with her first, keep it simple, keep it light. Mainly, I want you to be a great listener, and that's going to be key. So let her tell you her stories as much as she wants. Ask good questions, but mainly just listen and listen well. If it's appropriate to tell some of your story and you feel that wisdom is encouraging you to do that, go ahead. You want to communicate that you are committed, that this is a marathon, it is not a sprint, that you are excited to be on this journey with her. And this is a great time to reiterate. She's going to probably have already heard it during her intake that you are here to walk with her, or if it's a man, to walk with him through the duration of the pregnancy and up to a year after the baby's born, that this is not just a small, quick thing, that this is going to be something that you're going to be in with them for the long haul. And you're going to also talk a little bit about laying the foundation for the relationship. This might be a good time to say, hey, I would love to get together with you maybe once a week, and go ahead and look at your schedules and see what's going to work. I love to text. Do you like to text? When is a good time to text with you? These are times when I can receive texts. These are times that I don't. Again, like I said, listen. We're going to talk a lot about that. Be a great listener. Be a student of your mentee. And as you listen well, when you're communicating with her later that week, that's a great way to say, hey, I remember you shared this with me. How did it go? Or, hey, I was thinking about you and I was praying this for you. And just that she feels heard and she feels known. And she may have never felt that before or not felt it in a long, long time. And so you are modeling Christ to her by saying that she is known. Another thing is you're going to go ahead and discuss expectations and desires. Again, we kind of already talked about that, but this is the direction that it's going. You may or may not want to talk about goals during the first meeting. Use your wisdom. Does it feel right, or does it feel like it's a little quick to do that? And so that's just some ideas. We have some conversation starters there in the guide. There's also some more in your appendix. But just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Communicate with leadership. Hey, I'm having my first meeting. Let people pray with you and for you.
Yeah. So once you've gotten started, you may be one of those people that's like, I just don't like people that much. I'm kind of an introvert and I just don't like having these conversations. And it's time to flex that muscle and get used to that. That's a part of just loving people and engaging them where they are. And it's going to be useful to you as you are preparing and growing in your confidence to share the gospel, right? And so we want you to move in that direction, be faithful in that. We've given you some handholds here, but once you've started that relationship, it starts to kind of carry some momentum. And yet at the same time, whenever things start to happen that you're like, gosh, this is outside of my realm of experience and I'm not entirely sure what to do with this, we really want to make sure that you care for yourself well, that you take pause and just go, okay, I recognize that I am limited. I recognize I'm supposed to be practicing Sabbath, that I'm pacing myself. Like you weren't given limitations because God wanted to take things away from you. You were given limitations because it glorifies Him for you to be dependent upon Him, for you to be in community with others. And so address what comes up with your community, seek counsel, and take a break. It's okay to go, hey, this weekend I'm going away, I'm going to be on vacation, or I'm just going to be offline for a bit. And so I'm not responding to you because I don't care, because I'm not praying for you, but because I'm caring for myself. You will be modeling a really healthy discipline and practice to your mentee that they hopefully will emulate and imitate in their own lives.
Next thing is healthy communication, and we've already talked a little bit about this, but I want to read what it says here. And healthy communication involves proactive, tone-sensitive interactions, not responding hastily or in anger, but expressing truth and love consistently with gentleness. And I want to just say something about that. If you are communicating a lot over text, a lot of times tone can be lost. And so if maybe some things are going sideways in a conversation and things are getting a little heated, you might want to say, I would love to talk to you about this over the phone. That way you can hear my tone of voice and I can hear your tone of voice. It might also say, things are getting a little heated here. I'm not saying that all your conversations are, but I'm just wanting you to think proactively in case something does start to happen. I'm going to take a pause on this. For me personally, if someone says something that takes me off guard or maybe offends me or hurts me, I may want to respond quickly and zing them right back. And it's always best I try to just not respond right away and sit with it for a little bit.
I think the thing you're going to see in some of your mentees is like their woundedness. So they may respond in certain ways that you're just like, where did that come from? Or why would they respond in that way? And if anything, for me, it really highlights you're wounded. Like you are hurting. That's why you responded that way. And so rather than taking it personally, sometimes it's so out of the blue and so off base that it's almost comical. And so you can really serve your mentee well by just going, gosh, like that is crazy that she or he would even accuse me of that or say that or would use those words, that you just step back and go, okay, like let's just pause. Let's remember where they're coming from and then go, okay, let's re-engage and make sure that we are using winsome, loving language that, again, just models Christ-likeness for you. So you want to make sure that you ask good, open-ended questions as you're being a good listener. So just kind of stay away from the yes-no questions or maybe even away from the why questions because they may not be able to explain it. They may not even be able to articulate some of their emotions or some of their stress and frustration. But giving them good, open-ended questions will help them kind of step back for a second and maybe think about why they feel the way they do, even though they don't have words for it. So we see that a lot in vulnerable children that have been neglected and abused that we work with. And in many ways, these are grown-up versions of those same children that are trapped in some of those traumatic situations with their own parents or relationships that they've gotten themselves into or choices that they've made. And by asking them these open-ended questions, you're giving them an opportunity to just process and pause for a second.
And there in the back of your guide, there's some examples of some really great open-ended questions. I would encourage you just to look through those and think about that. This is a life skill that's great, not just for a mentoring relationship, but for all relationships. As you practice being a good listener, is just to say, hey, tell me more about that. Or how did you feel about that? Or I wonder if... And just let them continue to work that out as they're answering your questions. Another thing is you want to be encouraging and empowering them to reach logical conclusions. And so sometimes you ask leading questions to try to help them get there on their own instead of you just saying, well, this is the answer. Let them get there on their own if you can, because that's can be more impactful than you just saying it's this, this, and this. The other thing is to be patient. This, sometimes in the relationship, you're going to feel like you're taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But just be faithful and be patient. There may be seasons in the relationship where, you're hearing a lot from them. And then there's seasons where you're not. And just keep being faithful and patient. We see lots of ebbs and flows in the mentoring relationship.
Yeah. So next thing is there's a case study there in your guide. Just about responding in love and truth that we want you to read through and then answer some yes/no questions and then start to unpack. And so hopefully this will just put you kind of in a headspace where you go, okay, what would I do in this situation? Like, what would I advise? How would I interact if this was my mentee? And so take a minute, pause this, read through that, answer those questions and begin to unpack that. And then after you've done that, if you would, go through the end of this session there in your guide and unpack some of the conversation starters, unpack some of the encouraging things that will hopefully give you some handholds. We didn't want to give you everything. Again, this isn't a curriculum. And yet at the same time, we wanted to give you some things of like, okay, these are the questions I can ask. And here's something maybe that I'm really interested in helping my mentee take the next step. And so I want to make sure I ask these 3 questions whenever we meet next time. You might even just text them and say, hey, these are the 3 questions that I want to ask you. And you can use that as just a framework for your conversation whenever you're grabbing coffee or moving forward.
Absolutely. So when you're reading, it's a case study on Felicia. She is not a real person. She's not a real mentee. It is a story that we created. So just read through it, answer the questions. Some of them are obvious. Some of them could go either way. If you're not really sure and you want to talk about that further, then you can email pregnant@watermark.com.
.org.
I always mess that one up. And say, hey, I'd like to talk about this a little bit further. If at any point as you're going through the training and you don't understand something, just hit that email and someone will call you and go over anything with you in that moment.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us for session 7. We've got one more with session 8. We'll see you next time.